I shuffled nervously in the hard plastic seat, my leg bouncing uncontrollably as I waited for my turn to speak. The room was dimly lit, with a circle of the most pathetic people you'll ever meet, all crammed into one room, like a big orgy. Addicts seeking redemption, or at least a sliver of hope. The leader of the group, Susan, a gentle-looking woman with kind eyes, turned to me.
Jacob, since you're new, would you like to share your story?
I hesitated, glancing at the faces around me. With a deep breath, I stood up, hands shaking slightly as I rubbed my arms. Hi, I'm Jacob, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Jacob.
The group responded in unison, making me hate myself just a little more. I cleared my throat, struggling to find where to start. I had a pretty normal childhood, I guess. My parents were good people. Mum worked 2 jobs to support us and gave us everything we could have asked for, within reason. My dad, he had his moments. He'd lash out sometimes, hit me, my sister, and my mum. But, I don't want to blame him for this. I gestured vaguely to the husk of a human I had become. My sister, Sarah, she was always there for me. She was tough, braver than me. There was this one time in school, a bully was picking on me. I was scared shitless. But Sarah, she just stepped right in front of him, told him to back off. She got a black eye for that, but she never regretted it. She was always looking out for me. My eyes started to glaze over as I remembered those days. When I got into my teenage years, things got rough. I started hanging out with the wrong crowd, doing stupid things. Like everyone does, I suppose. Sarah was the one who pulled me out of it. She dragged me back from the edge more times than I can count. She had this way of making me see sense, even when I didn't want to. I paused, wiping a tear from my eye. The years went on, and I finally sorted my shit out and figured out what my priorities were. I had landed a decent job, got myself a girlfriend. Things were looking up. But then, Sarah called me one night, freaking out. She said she was being followed by some guy, a tall man who wore a black bag over his head and hummed this creepy tune. Apparently he showed up everywhere. Her work parking lot, outside our parents' house, even when she was shopping. At first, I didn't believe her. I thought she was just stressed. Her life hadn't exactly gone to plan. She was still living at home and working at a diner earning minimum wage. I assumed she was imagining things. But she kept calling. She was scared out of her mind. And I didn't believe her. We were still pretty close, and for once in her life, she needed me to be there for her. My voice cracked like I just hit puberty again, and I took a moment to compose myself. I'll never forgive myself for that. I should have been there for her immediately. After about a month and a half of the daily phone calls, I got off my arse and decided to help her. We finally met up at a Starbucks. She looked awful. Dark bags under her eyes, hair unkempt and wild, baggy clothes, and worst of all, it smelled like she hadn't showered in weeks. We ordered a coffee, and she told me everything in detail. I took another pause from my life story, noticing half the group were too busy picking at their heroin scabs, and the other half could barely keep themselves awake. I carried on regardless. I wasn't worth listening to anyway. So we came up with this plan to catch the guy. She'd walk down an alley after sundown, and I would hide behind a bin and confront him. Maybe rough him up a little. I'm not a big guy, as you can tell, but I could take care of myself. And finally, would be able to repay her for stepping up to my bully all those years ago. Anyway, the day came, and we set the plan in motion. As Sarah turned the corner on her way to work, the man would follow, just like he did every day. I jumped out and confronted him. And this is where my story becomes a little hard to follow. Most people believe it's because of all the junk I've shot into my veins since. But I don't care what y'all think. It's my story. And it's fucking true. Susan grabbed hold of my arm and pulled me back from my sudden rage.
It's okay, Jacob. None of us are here to judge you, only to listen. Please, carry on.
Okay. So, yeah. This thing was not human. When it pulled this black bag off of its head and showed its face, God, I'll never forget that face. It wasn't human. Its eyes were too large, too black, and its skin was this sickly, pale color. Its mouth, it twisted in this horrible grin, filled with teeth that were too sharp. Too many. I panicked. I ran. I left Sarah there and ran home. I ignored her calls, her texts. I even hid when she showed up at my apartment, banging on the door, begging me to let her in. 3 days later, she was missing. I knew it was that thing. I knew it, and I did nothing. I couldn't face my parents, couldn't help with the search. I was a coward. My voice grew softer, filling with regret. Regret for ever coming to this meeting and letting myself get this worked up. I started seeing the creature everywhere. in the shadows, in my dreams. The only way to forget, to numb the fear, was with drugs and alcohol. It made the memories fade, at least for a while, but I'll never forgive myself. The creature, it won't let me. I see it everywhere I go now. I guess that's the price I pay. I'm here because I want to be clean. I need to be clean. I can't hide from this creature by killing myself with drugs. I don't deserve that kind of mercy. This is my punishment, and I need to accept that. Thank you. I fell back into my seat, slumped my shoulders and avoided eye contact with everyone. The room was silent. I'd like to think the weight of my story was hanging in the air, but nobody gave a squirt of piss. Susan nodded, her eyes filled with understanding.
Thank you, Jacob, for sharing your story.
As the group moved on to the next speaker, my mind lingered on the past, the guilt, and the haunting face of the creature that had turned my life into a living nightmare. The next person's story washed over me, barely registering. I realized I was just as bad as the rest of them. I don't give a shit about their problems. My mind was still trapped in that dark alley, the creature's face looming large in my memory. Why would I want to add their problems onto mine? I could hear this creature's low, guttural hum, the sound of it slithering closer. I shook my head, trying to dispel the images, but they clung to me like a second skin. My life had become a series of blurred days and nights, a haze of substances and fleeting moments of clarity. I lost my job. Beth left me. And now it feels like I just drift aimlessly, the weight of my sister's disappearance pressing down on me. Every time I closed my eyes, I was either met with that creature or Sarah's face, her voice calling out for help. And every time I turned away, unable to face the reality of what I had done. This addicts group was my last hope, a fragile lifeline in the storm of this existence. I wanted to be clean, not for myself, but for Sarah. It was my punishment, my penance. I had failed her in life. The least I could do was honor her memory by facing my demons sober. Susan eventually called for a break, and I stood, stretching my weary legs. Meandering over to the coffee table, I poured myself a cup, hands shaking slightly as I added a sugar, the spoon clinking against the cup. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself.
Hey, Jacob. That was some story.
Came a voice behind me. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak.
I'm Mike.
The man continued.
I just wanted to say, I get it. The guilt, the running. I've been there. You have to know that this creature isn't real. It's all in your head.
I turned to look at Mike, trying my best not to punch him in the face right there. Thanks, I said quietly, stretching my lips into a pathetic grin. It's hard, isn't it? Mike nodded.
Yeah, I know. But you're here. That's a start.
He was right about that. Yeah, it's a start. Eventually, Susan clapped her hands and ushered people back to their seats, like we were children.
Okay, everybody, please take your seats and we can pick up where we left off.
So, that's my story. I'm not proud of it, as I'm sure you can imagine. I'm trying to take everything one day at a time, but to tell the truth, I'm not sure how much longer I can go on like this. I hear the humming of the creature echoing through my head all the time. Sometimes it even speaks to me, telling me that I'm a coward, that Sarah is disappointed in me. Like I don't fucking know that. Lately, however, it's been getting a lot worse. I stopped going to the addicts' meetings. I couldn't bear looking at all their faces. To be honest, none of them believed me. They all thought I was making this up, trying to get some sympathy vote. Arseholes. It's gotten to the worst point it ever has. I lie in bed, and it whispers awful things to me all night. I don't remember the last time I slept. I'm recording this because this night it whispered something different to me. And I don't think I can ignore this one. It asked me to meet it in the alley where it took Sarah. I think I might just do that.